Welcome to the October 2024 Star Wars Canon Update. Last month we got one novel and 11 new comic issues, so let's dive in. Tears of the Nameless technically came out right at the end of September, but I hadn't finished it yet. Now I have, and I would call it a must-read for the High Republic series. It answered a ton of questions, clarified the timeline a bit, and seemed like a clear beginning of the end for the entire publishing initiative. We learned more about the Nameless and the Blight and an ancient Force-using group called the Ptolemites, and it was all wrapped up in a great story about Reath Silas, who is one of my favorite characters of the era. I'll link to my full review in the cards if you'd like to learn more. You can also get the audiobook for free on Audible by clicking on the link in the description or by visiting audibletrial.com/Star Wars Explained. The Glass Abyss was the new Mace Windu novel that came out in October. It introduced a new planet called Metagos and a very strange new villain in the form of Chulok, an alien that could bond mentally and physically with other species to enhance its strength. It was all very self-contained and didn't add a lot to the overall canon in my opinion. I struggled through the book to be honest, but if you prefer your Star Wars to be more science fiction than space fantasy, you might be into it. I'll link to my full review in the cards as well, and the audiobook is also available on Audible right now. The 11th issue of the High Republic Adventures gave us a little break from the Eriadu storyline to follow Ram as he provides backup for Gavi over on Valo. This is interesting because it ties into Escape from Valo, which I like, but it almost seems like anyone reading this comic would have to have read that book to fully understand what was happening. Which isn't a problem for me or other completionists, but I have noticed the High Republic starting to be less standalone as we reach the end of the story. The final issue of Saber for Hire had some surprising reveals, like the fact that Ty's former master had become a child of the storm. I did not see that coming. I wish it hadn't been delayed several times because I'd kind of forgotten what was going on, but the issue did a good job of catching me up to speed. This felt like maybe the end of Ty's High Republic arc, accepting the connections she's made since leaving the Jedi Order. I expect she will appear again, but if she doesn't, I think she's had a satisfying conclusion. Echoes of Fear issue 2 was cool and built very nicely off of Tears of the Nameless. Reath and Amadeo are researching the Echo Stones, which they learned about in the novel. They listened to the final transmission of Barnabas Vim, who was last seen heading to Planet X, where the Echo Stones apparently originated. That actually makes a lot of sense, and I like how the High Republic is beginning to wrap up its many mysteries. Dispatches from the Occlusion Zone got off to an interesting start. This basically felt like it could have been the High Republic Adventures issue 11, continuing the story from issue 10, but it's set up to tell us multiple stories about the Jedi who've been trapped behind enemy lines for a year. In this issue, we learn that Eriadu is under threat of a devastating natural disaster ever since a Nihil attack. Also, it's just awesome to see Jake Bartok getting the chance to do more official Star Wars art. The Battle of Jakku macro series began with the first 3 issues of Insurgency Rising. For Canon junkies, I think this is shaping up to be pretty cool. It's combining and simplifying the various stories set after the Battle of Endor, including the Aftermath trilogy, the Uprising mobile game, The Princess and the Scoundrel, and more. The first issue was an introduction to Governor Adelhard and his attempts to misinform his sector that the Emperor has not been killed. In the second, we saw a tease of Gallius Rax from the Aftermath trilogy, and we learned that Adelhard is considered to be rogue by most of the Imperial remnant, and they're actively working towards his defeat with the help of the Acolytes of the Beyond. The New Republic also sends a team to learn more about the Moff, including Poe Dameron's father, Kez, and Yeager from Star Wars Resistance. We see more of Luke's adventures on Pilio from Battlefront 2, as he is also attacked by the Acolytes, and we see Zeva Bliss and the Spice Runners of Kijimi take center stage as the Underworld hopes to keep the galaxy in chaos. The third issue saw Kez, Yeager, and the others captured by Adelhard and beaten down by Commander Bragg as well as a mysterious Inquisitor, but Luke heads out on his own to rescue them all. I like that this series is teasing out little mysteries, even if we know characters like Rax are on the horizon. I wasn't expecting an Inquisitor to be involved at this point in the timeline, and the prospect of Luke facing them is exciting. Ewoks issue 1 surprised me just because I didn't know it was going to tie into the Battle of Jakku comics. An Imperial returns to Endor with Zuckuss, Forlom, and 2 other bounty hunters to seek out a hidden weapons depot on the moon. The Ewoks are going to have to learn to defend themselves without the help of the rebels, and they're wondering how they should treat off-worlders from now on, with hope or suspicion. There's also a cool new tough guy Ewok named Midro that's pretty neat. The 4th and final issue of Inquisitors was alright. I'm not crazy about these 4-issue runs. I was just starting to get into Tensu Run's story at the end of the 3rd issue, and now it's over. Inquisitors didn't tell us anything new about the Inquisitorius, the individual Inquisitors, Vader, or the Jedi at this time. It tread a lot of similar ground as stories like the Star Wars Jedi games. I would say this series is skippable, unfortunately. For Story of the Month, I've got to go with Tears of the Nameless. That easily became one of my favorite High Republic books of all 3 phases, giving us awesome character moments, intense action, and major answers. In November, we're getting 8 new comic issues, including the start of the second part of the Battle of Jakku comics, Republic Under Siege. The Canon update will return in early December to cover all those new stories, but that's it for October. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.